Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Brandpie Energy Masterclass, Tension in the Transition. I'm Will Bosanko, for those of you who I've not met before, CEO of our UK and Europe business here at Brandpie. We're a strategic consultancy. We specialize in helping leaders and their teams to unlock growth at what we call pivotal moments of change. And with that in mind, we do a lot of work, of course, in the energy sector. I don't think there's a sector potentially that is facing more change and is more at the forefront of change. And it's a space that we're proud to partner with many businesses navigating complexity and opportunity. So why are we here today, and why are we so happy to host this session? Well, we know that the energy sector is at a tipping point. And I've got some fantastic statistics here with me. I'm like a newsreader this afternoon. We've got, according to the IEA's World Energy Investment 2025 report, investment's going to hit a record 3.3 trillion US dollars this year, nearly two-thirds now flowing into clean energy. And solar alone, I think, accounts for $450 billion of that. So we're officially also in the age of electricity. Spending on grids, generation, storage is about 50% higher than fossil fuels, and that's a shift, significant shift from just a decade ago. But the World Economic Forum also says here that the story isn't that simple. This is not a one-sided shift, as we all well know. 65% of countries improved their transition readiness this year, but energy security has stalled. Emerging economies, which drive more than 80% of new energy demand, receive less than 10% of clean energy investment. So there is a huge tension here to unpack. Ambitions colliding with reality, progress is facing friction, and trust, of course, is being tested across many different polarized stakeholder groups. And that leads us to today's session and the theme, tension in the transition. And to explore these really intriguing issues, I'm so delighted to be joined by two outstanding leaders today. Delighted to welcome you all to them both. The first, Filipa Ribeiro, the Global Head of Brand Strategy at Galp. Good afternoon.
Hi,
Filipa.
good afternoon.
Great to see you again, and thank you for joining us. Filipa is driving Galp's transformation at a really critical juncture in this transition, repositioning the business rather to balance credibility and agility. And I'm sure all of you know of Galp, of course, but Galp is Portugal's largest integrated energy company, active across Europe, Africa, South America, and rapidly advancing its portfolio. So we're so much looking forward to hearing your perspective today, Filipa. Delighted that you're with us.
Thank you.
Also joining us is Henrik Habberstad, the Head of Brand and Creative at Equinor. Good afternoon, Henrik. Good to see
Hello.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Henrik was central to the landmark rebrand from Statoil to Equinor, and is now shaping one of Europe's biggest energy players, evolving, of course, from oil and gas into a broad energy company. And you all know Equinor. Equinor is Norway's multinational energy company operating in 30 plus countries and investing heavily in offshore wind, hydrogen, carbon capture as well, targeting net zero by 2050. So I couldn't think of two better names balancing the transition, and we're delighted to welcome you both. And I think with that, why don't we just dive in? This afternoon, we're going to be talking about how brands can balance that dual imperative of energy security and transition, but also, we've got a lot of brand and communication leaders on the session joining us this afternoon. What it takes for a bold idea to really cut through that volatility and to actually stick within an organization. That's the key thing here. So, Filipa, Henrik, let's start. Why don't we kick off with a big question? How can energy brands balance the dual imperatives of energy security and transition? Filipa, I'll come to you first.
So I don't know, I would like to start with, I'm not going to follow exactly your question, but just to
Good.
be a bit provocative. I don't know if you've all heard about the blackout that we had in Portugal some months ago. It was a total blackout in the country. And what saved us, and because what you were saying about storage and all of that, and what saved us really was the fuel at the time. So hospitals, fireman. So imagine a country we were completely shut down for an entire day. So it's really about the balance and this and the transition, being balanced about the transition. So what we say at Galp is, yes, we have to transition. It's mandatory to transition, but we have to do this in a very, very responsible way. Because the world's not prepared yet for it. The world desperately needs the transition, but we are not totally prepared for the transition. So only some countries and some populations of those countries are ready for a total transition. If we would to do the transition right now, we would leave much more people behind than the ones that could do the transition right now. So it's really the word for us is really balance. So we are working fiercely on transition, on making the transition as quick as it can be, but it has to be also very secure and very safe for everybody, and it really has to count everybody in.
Thanks, Filipa. Henrik, how about yourself?
Thank you for sharing that. And I think the balance and responsibility are two key words for us as well. And if we're going back just a few years, I think it's fair to say that the whole energy industry, they were quite optimistic and enthusiastic about the energy transition, that this will happen sooner rather than later. But as we all know, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the world and the world of energy turned in a way 180 degrees in 180 days. And suddenly the transition word were replaced with security. And for Equinor and Norway, we became one of the most important energy provider to Europe almost overnight. And so balance is key, but you also talked about responsibility, and I think that comes with a huge responsibility. So I think that the challenges facing both Equinor and the broader industry now is not longer framed as either or. So it's not about shutting down the old while scaling the new. It's by doing both and do it responsibly. So and that story, seen from a brand point of view, isn't straightforward and simple, but it has to be truthful, I think. And this will be very open. And I think, Filipa, you used the word realistic. We have very, very realistic about the challenge we face.
Yes. People need to rely on brands at this point and on the company. So we have to be forward thinking, absolutely, and we are. But we have to be reliable. We have to be reliable, and we have to connect with every single person in the world, and not just with people. Even if you think about what's going on in the world in times of insecurity, financial insecurity too, people know that climate change is something that's there, and Henrik just proved that point. So it's absolutely necessary to work towards that. But we also have other concerns, and so we have to be reliable and speak to every single person and make them and help them understand that we're also here, thinking about what they need today, and not just, but their future is guaranteed with us, but in a reliable and a very realistic way.
So being ambitious about the long term, but also be very realistic about the project.
Exactly.
What we need right here.
Exactly.
It's such a balancing act, isn't it, between those long-term objectives and those very near-term realities that you both mentioned. And this is the most complex of questions, right? Henrik, you mentioned we need to tell stories that connect with people. How do you define a central organizing thought, a core idea for a brand that is facing such a balance, such a dichotomy of different asks, tensions, objectives? How do you create an idea that cuts through in the first place, but also that sticks through all of that change?
I think you said that in your introduction, you talked a little bit about boldness and bold ideas. And to be quite frank, I'm not that fan of the term actually, bold ideas. But I think what you talked about here is an idea that sticks. And I think that in such an environment that we're part of now, in the context, I think realism is a key word. So not just a bold idea, but a realistic idea told in an interesting way, if that makes sense. And I think, seen from our point of view, that we as you said, many markets, regulatory environments, public debates all around the world. So how, if we want to cut through with our creativity, it must be realistic and it must be credible.
Yes, very clear messages, clarity. People need clarity because it's the transition and the amount of different products and services and different companies. Competition is the market is really crazy. You've got like digital players coming on. You've got every single day you hear some player, some brand say one thing, the other say the other thing. So people are a bit confused, you know. It's a bit like it's something that should be simple, but really it's a bit like people are reading insurance lines, and we know this from consumers. You know, they say this is like reading an insurance leaflet. We're a bit scared. We're a bit so many words, so many, and so brands and companies also have the responsibility to be really clear about what we're talking and what we're doing and what we are delivering. People need to understand their options, and I think I agree with Henrik. The idea has to stick out. I think that what has to be bold, I don't know if the idea has to be bold, but the company has to be bold about saying the truth and saying, and even, you know, if you're a company and you're selling solar energy, you have to be bold enough to say, this is not the future. We're going to change the world. You have to say, yes, solar energy, but maybe you're going to need a little bit of gas, you know, at the end of the day or during the winters to keep this up. But you're doing good. You're really doing good. And you're making a difference because you're not only consuming gas by now, you're also introducing new energy. So I think boldness and boldness comes by with the truth of the companies and yes, and helping people out. I think it's I'm repeating myself about the insurance because this is really funny. People, it's really like I was reading my products and services the other day, and I said I don't know if I understand all that's going to be launched right now. So it felt like looking at an insurance. So imagine people that are not talking about this the whole day. This is not their business. This is not their life. This is not their worries. So clarity and being a partner that helps people do the transition.
And on the clarity, I think maybe this is a leadership opportunity for brands as well, because maybe we can take a more kind of educational role, what it actually takes. First of all, how important energy in large is for the world, but also what it really takes to succeed with the transition. Because we live in a very polarized world, very black and white, and we are all searching for easy answers. But as we know, within this industry, there are no easy answers or silver bullets. So maybe that is a leadership opportunity also to take a more thought leadership educational approach.
I 100% agree on that. Yes.
And I think what Mark Ritson, who has a very clear definition of a brand, he said that you have two jobs if you want to build a brand. It must come to mind, and it must stand for the things you want it to stand for. So, and again, that's also the balance, I think.
Yeah, consistency. Consistency is also key.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you both use with your teams, among your stakeholders, as that lens for clarity, for consistency? I'm thinking for those who are joining on the line this afternoon, you know, what advice would you give to someone in their own organization for how to maintain that clarity, maintain that consistency through brand?
Be resilient. Be resilient as a marketing team. That's for sure. But consistency is you and considering the energy market and how things are going crazy with communication, and we see investments are high rocketing. I don't know about I think it's the same all around the world, but here in Portugal, investments are high rocketing. So that's challenging when you want to keep consistency, because you know the will is to let's just respond, let's fire back, let's do this. So we've got the competitors are online now with the communication or saying something, let's just say, and sometimes it's better to be silent and make sure that you are absolutely consistent than just shoot around, you know, slogans, campaigns, and And consistency is you have to be ready to work on something entirely new the next day. But if you have a plan, I think, I like disruption. So it's something. I like disruption. I like the challenge. I like I don't think I would be in marketing if I wouldn't like the challenge and the thing. Today's one thing, tomorrow's another thing. Now you have the budget, then you don't. So I think I like this. But I think that you're prepared for, if you do plan, I plan to disrupt. If the brand doesn't have a plan, if the brand doesn't know who it is, if the brand doesn't have a tone of voice, if a brand isn't clearly anchored on what are the values, what are our attributes, how do we speak to people, what do we say, what do we stand for, what's our brand purpose? If you are very clear with your brand purpose, you can react very easily, and consistency will be there. So having a good plan, a good brand framework, being clear about that, and then I think you're ready to navigate the competition and the communication.
Yeah, very boring response from me, but I agree totally. But I think it's interesting with consistency, because coming from brand school, marketing school, strategy school, I mean, we learned this almost at lesson 1. But it seems like we kind of tend to forget the importance of consistency with all the new channels popping up. And how I see this, I think that consistency is a little bit coming back, and the importance of it. And I think we have a lot to thank Andrew Tyndall and System 1 for that, and the report they presented. I think it's actually a year ago this month at the Festival of Marketing in London, where they actually put focus on this, that consistency is so important. And it all starts with what you said, Filipa, a clear understanding and a clear articulation of your brand. So but as we also know, I mean, seen from a creative point of view, consistency is not about matching luggage and do the same all the time, but being clear on who you are and what you stand for. So, and I also feel, I mean, we both represent global companies, and sometimes I feel that we are more focused on all the differences from the markets rather than the similarities. So if we can gather around a core brand ID and look for similarities across, that will also help consistency, I think. But I'm really glad that consistency is a little bit back.
Consistency is back in vogue. Yes, I think what you both raised there is incredibly important. And Filipa, your reference around having clarity around the purpose of the organization and ensuring we use that as a lens through which we respond to change. I think we see time and time again how helpful and value creating that is. A question I have, and this is a topic that'll be familiar to you both. We've covered it so many times across these sessions, but it continues to be one of the greatest challenges, is how to build trust with such a diverse set of stakeholder groups, particularly for global energy companies. And I think it's a lovely segue into that theme, because consistency is often one of the key things needed in order to build trust, but also some of the areas and attributes you mentioned earlier, being honest, being transparent. So intrigued in both of your perspectives on how you build trust with your stakeholder groups.
Well, I mean, trust is at the core, but I think it is, of course, for this industry, and but it probably is for all kind of industries. But I think that trust today maybe look a little bit different than it did a few years back, because it was a lot of focus on ambitions and long-term ambitions, but now it's more about focus on the actions here and now. So I think that it's not only about communicating ambitions only, but also action, and doing that in a way that resonates well with the different audiences. But of course, and this is probably also back to actions and not only ambitions. That of course it's not only about messaging alone; it's also about the proof points. So, and we talked a lot about realism. So I think realism in the way we communicate also builds trust.
Yes, I agree, and I think you don't ask for trust; you earn trust. So, and you earn trust by real action. And that's one of the things that you have to walk the talk. I know this is a very, very cliche sentence, but it's true. You have to walk the talk. So in Galp, what we do is we have several partnerships with our communities, and one of the things that we want to, and one of our purposes is to help the communities develop in a sustainable way. We help with energy. How do you say this in English? We help them to be literate about energy and energy solutions. So that's our explaining them all the process and what they can do, and that's it. And I think we do walk the talk. So we have strong and solid partnerships with all our communities where Galp are. It's in Brazil, Sines, which is where we have our refinery, here in Lisbon, where we even have our office building, the communities that surround us. So that's how we, I think that's how we not ask, but we earn the trust from people by actually putting words into action.
Walking the
And I
talk.
think that the more people know about you and your brand and what you stand for, the higher the trust. So I mean,
Yes.
favorability and familiarity also breeds trust. So that probably speaks to why it's so important also to both educate and communicate.
Yes.
Filipa, what was great about what you shared then was just some really tangible examples. I'm wondering if either of you, anything comes to mind around a time when we have really engaged a stakeholder group very, very well, something that we think, or an approach that we've taken, be it internally or externally, that we think that really lived the brand. We walked the talk. We did it. We're proud of the action that we took. Anything that comes to mind for you both? Any tangible examples of times when we have walked the talk?
Are you talking in terms of campaigns, of
Whatever comes to
activations,
mind,
of
Filipa.
whatever comes to mind? Well, I know. Well, we are always talking about what we do externally, but now you talked about internally, and I think that's an interesting take, because if we want to earn trust, and if we want to have, if we have a brand purpose or a company purpose, that starts inside. If you want to be credible, if you want to be transparent, you have to do that inside, or otherwise it's going to be just marketing bullshit. Sorry. And people get you, people know you. So you really have to be, the first step that we gave in Galp towards that, the honesty was working internally with our people. And we have and our EVP is we all have a role in the future of energy, and everybody in Galp really believes in this. This is really true. And you have a role in the future of energy. Even the guy that's sitting in the financial sector, that's on his Excel, he knows that the work that he's doing is for a better future, and for the future that he has in the energy sector. So we did a huge campaign internally saying we have to believe in this. We have to believe in the transition. We want the transition to happen. And if we are all certain that we have this, that we have, and we are giving us as a company, Galp as a company, giving our employees the empowerment and the tools necessary to feel this, we were sure that this would translate to what we do outside. So suddenly when this happened, we had much more volunteering. We have in Galp, we have an incredible number of people that volunteer every single year, and volunteer to do, work for the community to help. We have our Galp Fundação Galp, which is the part of Galp that works on a pro bono level, doing amazing work too towards this. We've done a lot in that sense.
So part of that walking the talk is building that belief internally,
Internally, yes.
Henrik, how about yourself?
Yeah, I can build on that internal part, because I think it was Janne Carlsson, the former famous CEO of SAS back in the 80s. I think he said that if you fix the inside, they will fix the outside. So probably the internal audiences, i.e. the employees, are probably one of the biggest and most important target audience, and probably your strongest brand ambassadors. And we recently did an internal communication project around our strategy and where we stand in the transition. And rather than the CEO standing and pointing to slides and trying to explain the strategy, what we did was that we invited a young graduate to share her journey with the CEC. So she met with many of the members of the CEC of Equinor and talked about her doubt of working in a company like that, her determination, and all the feelings in between. So that was very good of humanizing the strategy and also acknowledging that if you are to succeed, it's allowed to with all the whole spectrum of the feelings. So that was an internal project that I think worked quite well. And we have also, as I said, about this thought leadership and this more educational yet interesting approach. We have done a lot of content marketing and trying to test new formats on that to try to educate in an interesting way and not just banging on with a lot of facts. Because I think if there is something that recognized in this industry, we have a lot of facts. But facts and emotions are not always the best bedfellows, right? So if we can come across with a fact in an interesting way, I think that's also breeds trust.
I think you've touched on something so interesting there, Henrik, and something that I'm very passionate about too, and also, which is you mentioned humanizing the strategy, and a big part of driving any change or any kind of internal belief, of course, is about engagement and how do people engage with the ideas, the frameworks, the objectives that we need adopted throughout the organization. And in the energy sector particularly, it's such an engineering-driven sector that we often talk in, the specifics or the numbers or the numeric values. It's rational. And what's often forgotten, and the conversations I find myself frequently having, is there's an emotional lever that we're not pulling that will actually build and drive momentum for the business. And I'm intrigued in both of your perspectives on that. What role do you think emotion plays in building a brand in the energy sector?
Henrik, would you like to jump in?
Filipa, did you start?
I think it plays a huge role because engineers don't know, but they still have, all of them have a heart. So emotion always plays a big part. I think that when we're talking about climate change and the urgency of climate change, we're talking about people's lives. And when we're talking about people's lives, we're talking about emotion. So emotion is a big driver it's a big trigger, and it's the driver. And it is difficult. It's very challenging. So you have to, once again, everybody has to be resilient in this sector. So because we had the target was 2030, then 2050, then so policies keep changing. Lots of things keep changing, and I think it's, of course, we're in the business to make money, but if it was only money, we would be. It's the emotion and the emotion and the passion of wanting a better future for all of us. I think that everybody, even engineers that are working in this, when engineers get excited about something, that's emotion. So, and from a brand perspective, when you have to be resilient on the marketing team because you're presenting to engineers. So it's not, how are you going to sell them that emotion will sell and bring numbers? How do you sell to a bunch of engineers that a Christmas campaign will be marvelous for our results, company results, and for the quotas that we need to have by the end of the year and business objectives. And I think it's you do that with emotion too. So being emotional and believing in emotion and the importance of emotion will help you sell the emotion you need to sell.
Yeah, and we talk more about humanizing and our language and our approach rather than emotional. But as you said, that's also emotions, right? So try to humanize our stories, tell the technology stories, etc., through our people, in an interesting way. I think that's also emotional. But what we are working quite a lot on is our what we call our verbal identity. Because there are so many, as we have already discussed, so many facts and figures in the industry. So if we can make the headlines of press releases, ads, so many posts, etc., a bit more sticky and a bit more interesting, that is the way forward, I think. That so more humanize and make it more relevant and relatable to people.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good point. I think verbal identity is such a, particularly in this industry, in this sector, the way in which you use language can really enable you to differentiate and stand out, the more accessible you make it.
Because we are so technical, as you said, we are an engineer-driven culture, right? And we are very technical. So if we just try to tweak a little bit on the language, I think more people will understand the journey we're on.
Yes, and emotion doesn't have to be about mushy. I think emotion is speaking the truth. So you have different types of emotion. It's about speaking the truth, and that's it.
And storytelling, yeah.
Storytelling, yes, storytelling.
Now, on the topic of showmanship, on the topic of humanization, I couldn't possibly run a session and not mention AI. I mean, this is of course the hot topic. Henrik, you and I were together in Oslo last week discussing this very thing. I'm intrigued. We talked a lot about differentiation, ideas, storytelling. How are you both interpreting AI and using it as a catalyst for creative thinking? You know, is it helping internally to create ideas at speed? Is it enabling you to drive more consistency? Just fascinated as we think about all of these, you know, varying challenges. Is AI helping us find new ways and new solutions to creativity and, let's say, humanizing our story?
I think consistency, sure, because it helps you with the frameworks. Being more creative, I don't think so. I think it's helping us be faster. We're moving faster. We're moving faster. AI doesn't come up with an idea. It will come up with an idea that somebody already had. AI only knows what everybody knows. So nothing's going to come out, you know, completely new from AI, but it will help you. It will help you be sharper. It will help you be faster. It will help you be more organized. So in terms of structure, organization and planning, that helps. That AI gives us space to be creative. I don't think AI makes us more creative. It gives us space to be creative. And that's how we're using AI in Galp. We have to be very careful because of security measures. So we're very, very strict when it comes to cybersecurity risks and things like that. But of course, we do use it here and there. And we do have, we did develop a brand AI in Galp, and what it does not do the briefings for us, but if we need, you know, to have a quick assessment about something, to know how does this product talk, what does this service do, then we do have our internal AI that we worked on that has all the brand information, brand tone of voice, brand frameworks, and that helps us be that we're faster, more organized, more efficient. That's it, and giving us time to do what we like the most.
Yeah, I love AI, and it's become a very, very important partner for me. And I think partner is the word, at least for me. So it's not the final solution. So I find that it's very good to use both the artificial intelligence, but also the human intelligence. But it makes my briefs even sharper. I think you used the word sharper.
Yes.
So I think it's very, very good, and maybe AI can come up with a lot of bold ideas, but can they come up with a relevant and credible idea? I'm not too sure about that as of now, but I think and AI will obviously change both the energy business in huge, and the way we work significantly. And we're only in the beginning, but. I think we discussed this, Will, in Oslo, as you said as well, that I think it's also about shit in, shit out in a way. So don't be complacent with it and comfortably numb and say this is all the answers. Use it as a creative partner and then leave it to some real creative people to take the final
Yes.
aisle.
That human in the loop part, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
is critical, as we all know. And on the human front, I think one question I would love, and we've got some questions from those who've joined us this afternoon coming through, which is great. We'll get to in just a moment. One question that I think will be really important to ask is, we're talking here about driving change and ultimately transformation of the sector over time. And I'm intrigued both of your perspective on what do you believe the cost is of not evolving, and how do you communicate that upwardly within the business to the leadership, to executive? What role can brand and brand leaders play in driving and advancing that transformation?
Hmm.
I,
Go ahead, please.
No, just you talked about emotion, and now this question makes so much sense. I think I would give my answer to the previous question would have been much better if it came afterwards, because brand plays in terms of leadership internally in our company. It plays the emotional side. It's brand has this because we understand people, we understand what people want. We're not tech, so this helps us ensure that the transition is done and that the products and the services that we as a business create are what people need and not what we think that should be the future. It's the brand has a crucial role in explaining the humanization and the human part to all our business people, our business partners inside the company. So it's the brand is the consumer inside the company. The brand team, it works, the brand team and what the brand stands for, and all the work that you do for the brand, you do it from a human perspective. So I think we have a crucial role in that way.
But your question, Will, was also around the change and adaptability to well, Equinor is a 53-year-old or young company, and I think that the only constant factor during that history has been change in one way or another. And as you said also in the introduction, in 2018 we even changed our name, a big thing, from Statoil to Equinor, really signaling change. But I think I said that I don't like bold that much, but let me end here with a bold statement that the energy transition will test the industry's ability to adapt, evolve, and inspire. And those who treat the brand as a driver, not just as a wrapper, will be the ones who lead. So how can the brand also support the change in a realistic and relevant way? That I think is interesting, because yes, right now it is energy security, but the energy transition is still happening at a big scale, small and big every day. So I think this will really test our industry's ability to really change. But we have to use the brand as a lever for realism and reasoned optimism, I think.
I think what's come through, across this conversation is certainly a learning, I hope, for everyone who's joined us this afternoon, is a level of pragmatism that's required in this moment within the energy sector that I think you've both demonstrated so well around the balance between different elements and dealing with the change and, let's say, the varying stakeholder needs with honesty, with integrity, and with realism. It's this balance of, yes, painting a future-facing vision, but also addressing the near-term realities and potential challenges with transparency. And I think that's a learning for an energy company of any size, maybe if not just a global energy player. I'd like to also address some of the great questions that we've got through from some of the participants this afternoon. I'll cherry pick a few because we'll try and wrap up in the next 5 minutes or so. This one's very interesting. So, how does one deal with the highest paid person's opinion, especially when all seem to agree about emotion, but the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion, doesn't? Isn't it true that even if it's emotional, creative, or impactful, no one will push until the highest paid person's opinion agrees? So, I guess a paraphrase of that question. how do we bring the key influencers on side? And what is your experience of, let's say, thinking of those key stakeholders, key influencers within your organizations? How do you bring them on side and enable them to understand the importance of emotion and storytelling for an energy company?
Well, we do this with a lot of research and support. That's for sure, because once again, the higher paid person in our company is an engineer, probably, so no, he is. So it really we have to go there with numbers. We have to prove that emotion works with the numbers, and it's challenging sometimes for the first time, but then you see the results. So the results are proof that emotion does work. And if you're only selling products and services, the differentiation between brands and offers out there, it's really nothing. So you want to be top of mind. You want people to be your first option, the first brand that you think of. So you really need to work on emotion for that. You cannot just be, a textbook selling products or selling services and features. And it's tough, but use research. Everybody has emotion inside. So if you're working internally, pitch your CEO, or pitch it as if you were from the agency side. Make them. Today I had a Christmas campaign that it's the first time that Galp's going to do a Christmas campaign. It hasn't done it in a long time. And the end game, of course. And they started my boss started the meeting saying, well, this brand person, I said, brand only exists for one reason: business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know of any brand or any company that has a brand and communicates brand and works brand when the end game is not results in business. So if there is, let me go there, because it would be so much simpler. But so brand is business, emotion is business. Nobody wants to do, if it has to give us results, and do research, do whatever you have to do. Test your campaigns, go to the person with campaigns tested, be bold internally. Be bold internally. If you believe in it, be bold internally, and do whatever you have to do to prove that it's right.
Well, so just tell the overpaid hippo that brand is not window dressing. It's it as a heart of your reputation and long-term license to operate. And if the hippo don't understand even after that, set up a speed date with Lesbian and Peter Field next time you're in London with that person.
I think that's fantastic answers either side, I must say, guys. Well done. Then the next one, and then we'll take this as the last question this afternoon, but it kind of goes one step further in this topic. So talking about the role of emotion and authenticity that we've covered, how do we balance a brand narrative that appeals to attracting emerging talent who may be hostile potentially to energy brands against investors and commercial growth? So how do we create a narrative that can speak to, let's say, a multi-hyphenate stakeholder group?
I think if I can start there, I talked a little bit about this, acknowledging the doubt and the determination and all the feelings in between. And in Equinor, corporate brand and employer brand, we work hand in hand, of course. So acknowledging the feelings. Don't say that we have all the answers, and maybe you can also say that the biggest change you can do inside, not standing on the outside. But we understand that there are many feelings related to this. But if you want real change, you can do it inside, and we are willing to listen.
So is the takeaway there, Henrik, focus more on, or let's say carve out two separate stories in your mind that speak to an internal audience, focus on that internal audience, because if you get that bit right, then you'll see it cascade across your other stakeholder groups. Is that the takeaway?
Yeah, it could be, but I mean, maybe I'm not answering directly, but humanizing, because what we work relentlessly in Equinor every day is cutting emission from oil and gas. And I met a graduate at one of our big platforms out in the North Sea. The first 6 months of her career, she had cut so much emissions that we were not even close as normal human beings. I mean, so just humanizing that story and invite people into the journey, but don't claim that you have all the answers. I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. And Filipa, how about yourself on that topic around, how to attract emerging talent, ensure that we're communicating a story that can resonate both with them, but also with, a more commercial angle and investor audience at the same time?
Well, I talked about our EVP, which is we all have a role to play in the future, because Galp this was one of the struggles that we 2 years ago, everybody wanted energy transition, and all green energy companies were very sexy and people wanted to go there. And Galp, as you know, we're an oil and gas company, so we had some struggles there for a period of time to recruit people internally. And it was, once again, and repeating a bit what Henrik said, talking about our story, talking about the truth, talking about where the world was and what was needed. And that really, we could look at Galp as a very stable and reliable partner that will keep everybody, everybody, how do you say it? Well, everybody on tone while the energy transition is working, and while we're working towards the future. So we were like a responsible parent for that saying, a little bit like the responsible parent, making sure that you have the ground to play and to invent and to innovate. That was a story that we told.
Fantastic. Well, first things first, I'd like to thank you both for joining us this afternoon and for sharing your perspective. I hope everyone online has enjoyed this as much as I have. I think it's been such an intriguing conversation. Two main themes, I've written them down here on my little pad. Two main themes seem to come through. One around resilience. I think we've talked a lot about adaptability, the need to respond to those near-term needs, those near-term moments of change that are required of us as leaders of, let's say, very diverse energy companies. And at the same time, realism. I think that's come through in great spades through this conversation. The need for authenticity, for transparency, to be honest, while still communicating a very future-facing vision. And I thank you both for sharing those perspectives, because I think there are some really key learnings that I hope everyone can take away from this discussion this afternoon. So Filipa, Henrik, thank you both. And to everyone online, thank you for joining us. And we'll be in touch very soon with more conversations with energy leaders from Brandpie.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, Henrik. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.